2007 1300 Vstar. Changing the radiator fluid today. I'm going to do a radiator flush using distilled water, 50-50 ratio of distilled water and white vinegar, and then flush it again with distilled water, and then I'm going to put this Prestone Platinum to run in. So I've already done a couple steps. I removed the guard off the front of the radiator, took 2 Allen bolts. Oh, let's see, what are these? 4mm Allen bolts at the top up here, and then 2 little press connectors on each side. And on the bottom is a 12mm bolt that comes out. I also took the 2 12mm bolts out of the gas tank and slid the gas tank back to reveal the fill neck for the radiator. Took the cap off of there. And like I said, I took the 12mm bolt off the underside of the radiator. It's actually plastic. And as soon as you do that, that comes pouring out. I'm not sure what color it's supposed to be, but that's kind of a brown. I was just using this catch, this old oil bin as a catch. Taking the side cover off over here. That's a 5mm bolt right here. It takes off, and then the side connector is held on by these 2 rubber type grommets that you have to kind of pop off. And then I'll take this plate off here, and behind here is the overflow for the radiator. You can actually see the plastic bottle down through that crack right through there. And I'm going to use this siphon right here to pull the rest of the fluid out of there. Got that cover off. It's a 3mm Allen head bolts holding that on there. Here's the overflow for the radiator. You just pop that off. I'm going to stick that, like I mentioned earlier, suck it out of there, suck all the stuff out of there. There's the underside of the overflow. I was successful in getting that rest of that sucked out of there. And now I'm ready to, they say start the engine up, let it run just a minute just to get any trapped fluid in there, and then I'll fill it back up with the 50-50 DI water and white vinegar. So I cranked it up, let it run for about 10 seconds, and when I shut it off, I killed it with a kill switch. More fluid came pouring out of the bottom of the radiator. No fluid poured out while I was running, but as soon as I shut it off, it came pouring out. So I thought that was pretty good, so I decided to do it a second time. I cranked it up again, ran it for about 10 seconds, shut it off, and sure enough, more came out. And I tried a third time and no more came out, so at that point I'm going to assume that it's completely empty. Go ahead and put the plug on the bottom and fill it up with 50-50 distilled water and white vinegar. So I mixed 50-50 white vinegar and distilled water, poured the radiator full. Did not pour any into the overflow reservoir, but poured the radiator full. Took a little over half a gallon to fill the radiator up. And then I ran it. They recommend even taking a trip around the block, but it's raining a little bit here, so I did not take it around the block, although it just stopped raining. So I could do it now, but either way, I ran it. As you can hear, the exhausts are cooling off. Got the engine somewhat warm, Probably ran it for about 3 or 4 minutes. And one of the things I noticed is that a lot of this was in the overflow container, and a lot of the fluid, or a good bit of fluid, flowed back down into the overflow. I ended up pulling 2 of those out full of the fluid I'd put in, but as you can see, it's kind of a brown. Not as brown as what the original fluid was that was in there, but needless to say, is brown. So I'm going to let it cool off a little bit now. Drain the radiator again, and since I have a half of gallon of that left, I guess I'll pour the rest of that in there. And then what you're supposed to do is to, when you're all done with the distilled vinegar, you're supposed to pour this DI water, the distilled water, in there and run it just to kind of flush all that vinegar out. And then after that, drain it one more time and fill it with your radiator fluid coolant of choice. So as I said, I'm going to let it cool off some right now, and then I will drain the mixture of distilled vinegar, or I should say white vinegar and distilled water, out of there. Okay, I have now flushed my radiator with white vinegar and distilled water, 50-50 ratio. That right there is what I got out of my radiator, that black looking stuff. I've also filled it all the way up with distilled water. Ran it for probably about 3 or 4 minutes, a little bit above idle. And once it cools off a little bit, I'm going to drain it out one more last time before I put the final fluid into the press stone. Again, this is what I'm putting in it. 50-50.